Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Business Technologies here in Tallahassee, Florida, and we bring you another exciting episode of the show today with BillieAnne Gay. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Glad you're here. First up, you may have seen in the news, Colonial Pipeline, solar winds, the meat packing facility, Broward County School District, you name it. Everyone seems to have a ransomware problem. So it is your responsibility to deploy two-factor authentication, have a robust password, have advanced threat protection tools, anti-spam, firewall, cyber training, cyber insurance. That's enough tips for today. That's it.
That's it. Okay.
And then there's still no silver bullet. You could still get ransomware because the targeted attacks are to you and not to this large group backed by you-know-who overseas in the former Soviet Union. So it's very nefarious.
It's best practice to have the same password for all accounts, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great.
It just use your name, BillieAnne. 1, 2, 3. Well, in fact, the new password protocols are 16 characters or more and have an ongoing story or sentence versus a password and use characters and symbols. So, lots of hacking news out there. But today, we're going to veer away from cybersecurity, veer away from hacking. We're going to talk about BillieAnne Gay and her work with the Florida School Boards Association. And your title is Director of Advocacy and Legislative Services. So tell us what that's all about and what's going on in your world.
Yes, I am the Director of Advocacy and Legislative Services for FSBA. We represent all of the elected school boards in the state. There's a couple districts that we come in and out in our membership, but we have about 330 school board members who we serve. Helping them problem solve day to day. We do professional development. And then in my role, we talk a lot about grassroots advocacy, a lot of their advocacy and lobbying efforts on behalf of the legislature and building relationships at the local level and up. So I get to have a lot of great conversations with school board members across the state on many of the hot topics in today's news.
And we have a lot of hot topics going on. So what was legislative session like 2021 versus 2020? Because obviously every industry, every association, every membership organization in the state had to start over last year. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely a pivot. I think, obviously, being a lobbyist or working in the advocacy world, you pride yourself on the relationships you build. And I think that in the pandemic year, having those relationships and it was really helpful because we weren't allowed in the Senate office building. In the House you had to have it's like a hall pass or an escort back and forth to meetings. So it was really helpful to be able to call on legislators and or aides and kind of get them on the phone and find that access, because we didn't have that this year. It was a tough way to get your items across the finish line.
I bet. Well, Thank you for your work on behalf of our state and our schools. That's awesome. So, different question. So, overall in your career, we were just talking about career path a little bit, previous titles, previous roles. What would you say you're most proud of in your career thus far?
If I think about pride on a career level, it's no discredit to the work I do now, because I think everything we do is about impact, and obviously working at the statewide level with locally elected officials can help generate more of an impact. But I'm really proud of my time, as a teacher, SGA representative at Lincoln High School, which actually was my alma mater also, which was kind of fun. But just working with kids, I think that whenever you can be a role model with kids and help them learn how to interact with each other, we used to call it life after Lincoln. I think those are some of my awesome. Proudest moments. I do a lot of fundraising now. I'm active in the community, but some of the best fundraisers I did, were with 14 and 15-year-old kids learning how to, ask for money from people, support a cause, plan events. And those are just times, you can't ever get those back. And I love working and doing what I'm doing now, but I do miss that energy. There's nothing quite like that. Kids keep you in check too,
They certainly do.
Yeah, you got to show up your best every day for sure.
Yeah, they will call you out, especially that age range.
Absolutely.
When I was in high school, I was in a program that taught Spanish to young kids, and it was called the FLES program. And a lot of my peers, got the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they're like, Blake, we're going to give you pre-K. And I'm like, okay. I guess they thought that was all I was qualified for.
Yeah.
But those pre-K kids, they thought I was, their parents' age, Mr. Blake, you're so old. How old are you? And, we would learn colors and anything. But it was so fun. I mean, to make an impact on that level. And then I think I moved up to second grade at some point.
Awesome.
But
yeah, my mom was an early childhood educator. She worked at the Junior Museum or Tallahassee Museum of History and Natural Science for 35 years. And I remember being in college and I would come by to visit her classes. And you never got let off the hook with little kids, So I'd come from weight training or something. They'd say, "You don't smell very good today," or or you're dressed up as a witch today. And I thought, man, I didn't look in the mirror, But there's no room for error with little people, that's for sure.
No, that's definitely for sure. And to have a positive impact, a little bit off subject, when I worked with the Treehouse Kids Home here in the community, I remember one Christmas I took my father-in-law over there, and this young lady was sitting in the corner, and we were setting up like a Wii or something for them as a Christmas gift. And she just looked at my father-in-law, and he had this jacket on, just a windbreaker, and she's like, "I've never had a jacket before." And we just took that moment, and he said, "Well, now you do." And he took it off and gave it to her, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, nice work, Bill.
That's awesome. Yeah, Treehouse is great.
Well, let's see. Oh, and I've seen you out at the Treehouse event before. Did you happen to go this year and experience the fire pit little pod type setup that they had going on?
Yes, I did go this year and did experience the fire pit pod setup they had going on. I helped out again with the fundraising committee. And it's a great group that participates in that. A lot of people with donating a lot of their time to that cause, and such a great cause. But yeah, this year was fun to get back and face to face a little bit. It was one of the first real entries, I think, back into some of those soirees. So that was a great event this year.
Yeah, to see them just said, you know what, we're going to do this, and come up with a plan that worked. TCC did the same thing with their celebrity chef Cleaver and Cork event, and it was not in pods. But they pulled it off. Yep. It was great. And to hear the chef, Jeffrey Zarkarian, talk about moving from New York to Florida and say, well, I'm not leaving either. He's like, people are so friendly here. He's like, I went to Winn-Dixie. He's like, first, I've never been to a Winn-Dixie before. I didn't know what that was. But I thought everyone was waving to me because I'm a celebrity. He's like, and then I realized people just say,
joke's on you.
People just say hello. That's so fun. So good stuff. Absolutely. Florida proud, as they say.
Tallahassee proud.
So you mentioned community outreach. We just talked about Treehouse. FLAEYC. I saw you tweeting about that organization, and I didn't want to mispronounce the acronym. That's why I read it out.
It's
so what's the acronym stand for?
FLACE. FLACE, actually, so it's the Florida division of NACI, so it's the Florida Association for the Education of Young Children.
Okay.
The membership of that association, it's going to be early childhood educators and folks who own their own schools and things like that. A lot of nonprofit professionals also may be a part of that organization. But I was appointed to the board a couple years ago by their president at the time.
Awesome.
And so it was kind of a new piece for me. That's not a policy area that I'm super familiar with, but they wanted some help with public policy and building some relationships and fundraising. So that's been a really fun way to connect with. There's some early childhood education researchers on there. We're starting to add new folks to the board to kind of diversify. And I think anytime you can increase the diversity of stakeholders on a board, it kind of helps bring that perspective. So
sure.
It's been fun this year. I know you participated in our race for resilience. So we did a little virtual race to try to raise some money for scholarships for early childhood educators to come to conference. And then along with those scholarships, we've launched this year Leadership FLACE. And so that cohort who was able to come to our conference and start professional development, we weren't just going to leave it there. So we're continuing that throughout the year. We've had some panels on advocacy, leadership within your community, some equity pieces. So they're going through a little cohort together to grow and learn. So that's been a really neat thing to spend some time with on the side and meeting some other folks there too.
Well, you had an instant impact when I saw that tweet, and a lot of mutual friends that we have in the Twitterverse, all jumped in. Kudos to you for serving that organization. Now, let me ask you this: that walk, I'm assuming the walk was a real walk pre-COVID, and this was a digital walk. equivalent, I'll go walk on my own. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like so many things, we had to pivot, right? I think that's kind of like the word of the pandemic was pivot. But we had floated out a lot of ideas for fundraisers. Obviously, a race is something that they wanted to be able to have people participate statewide on the same day, hopefully. And then when they made the pivot to virtual, the staff at Flacey is very small, but they did a great job of trying to accommodate. We left it open to folks across the state on how they reported that. We tried to make it as inclusive as possible. So we had folks reach out and say, I'm in a wheelchair, I can't run, what can I do? And rolling counted,
right.
Swimming counted, just getting out and being active, walking your dog counted. And then, superstars like Christian Miner, former track star at Florida State, he definitely got out and ran, so we had all over the gamut there, but it was great to see that participation.
Yes, I did not run, but I walked. And I walk every day, so I was able to fit that into my lifestyle. Well,
that's awesome.
I don't know if we can call it active lifestyle, but...
Yeah, I even registered my dog, and so she had her own little registration there and got her extra steps in for the team, too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
It's always cool to see what not-for-profits do on a regular basis, but during the pandemic... I work with Big Brothers Big Sisters a little bit, and we were brainstorming because our bowl event was gone, and the walk event that we do, and the annual bash that we do. Like, okay, so we got nothing. What do we do? So we're brainstorming, and I was on the marketing committee. I'm like, how about a hot dog eating contest? Because I had just seen a buddy of mine at a basketball game. He's like, I do this all the time. I'm like, well, hey, that's weird, but we'll throw it out there. And everybody said no, of course.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, how about an online talent show? And all eyes looked at me like, that's a good idea. And I was like, yeah, we'll start it with the board, and we'll do like a minute talent. And everybody's like shaking their head. I'm like, or we'll start with the kids, and the kids will do something for a minute. And within like the first hour of releasing the idea, we called it the Big Talent Showcase.
Okay.
A young man's playing the guitar, a young lady's dancing, doing art. This year, we actually took it into this year too. It's like, year one was so popular. Even though things are getting back to normal, let's just keep doing this Big Talent Showcase. And she was making clay dragons. Like, that was her hobby. She wanted to share it. So, and people are, on the one wheels, which those are very dangerous, by the way.
Oh, yeah, the one wheelers.
Have you ever tried one?
There's no handles. You just balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was blessed with a lot of athletic talent, balance. Like, unless I'm in a catching, squatting position, I can't do any of those things. I don't like roller coasters. I guess I'm outing myself here, but I'm not a big thrill seeker. So so to put me on any apparatus that goes fast and I can be out of control on it, like I just opt out. But I do have a couple friends who may I say are too old to be trying activities like that, who have purchased those, and they really enjoy them, but I'm opting out,
I get it.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect segue into our next conversation piece, athletics. So you played for Florida State University, correct?
I did. I caught on the Florida State softball team. I think I am officially a has-been, But yeah, I played there 02 to 06 under Coach Graff, who's kind of the, Bobby Bowden of Florida State softball. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you can find, pictures of you in uniform very easily. By searching the internet, it would appear.
Please don't Google.
But congratulations on your success on the field back then. What was your favorite moment as a student athlete, if you could put it into one moment?
Man, I don't know if I could put it into one moment. Coach Graff did such a great job of making sure, I have a lot of friends who went to Division I programs, but Coach Graff always made sure there was a great life balance with the experience of being a college athlete, because it's a lot of stress on, student athletes. So we had a lot of great memories, but, most of my proud moments surround, I got to catch for Jessica Vanderlinden, who was a National Player of the Year. She's now Jessica Boulware, married Michael Boulware. I'm sure their children have already been given honorary scholarships, I'm sure, to Florida State.
Probably.
But yeah, she was just amazing. So, I came in as a little lowly freshman, wasn't promised any playtime, and she picked me and said, I don't want to throw to anybody but her. So I got a lot of playtime catching for her those first 2 years, and she was a lefty junk baller. She was really small. She was like 5'3", and I was not a big catcher, obviously, for Division I. So we always used to joke if there was a bench clearing, we were probably going to be in trouble. But luckily, she struck a lot of people out. So I have several memories with her. She struck out 22 against, I think, Boston College one time. It's a really neat memories there. And then obviously being able to catch for her and have her be awarded as a National Player of the Year was just something for the books.
We were talking about teaching and mentorship earlier. Do you try to play a role with current teams since then? Do you know any of the players or coaches? How's that look? Because I know you're a fan, obviously, because
sure.
Twitter again.
The pandemic year has been hard to keep in touch, but Lonnie Alameda and her staff have done a great job of keeping us in touch. So they always, she has the kids write a newsletter, or they'll reach out with a card. I was with a teammate who was in town last night, and she received a call from the team, kind of random, just checking in to say hey. And so Lonnie, I think, has done a great job coming in to a program that kind of had a dynasty and the same coach for a long time.
Right.
So very similar to football. The field is now named Joanne Graff Field after the former coach. So those are some big shoes to fill. But I think Lonnie did a great job of bridging the gap between, the old guard and her new system. I think we all feel like, a part of that family. And that was not an easy task for her to do. And, people talk about her as the new coach. I think she's coming in on year 13, and she's really built a name for herself and continued to build a name for the program. So I try to stay involved. I'm in the coaches club there. I would encourage anybody who supports the team, especially after this year, to join that. There's a lot of ways to do it. And obviously when we get back to full crowds in the stadium and things, we'll be able to be a lot more engaged with the teams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So this year's team made it all the way to the finals, correct?
Yeah, it was, I think it's kind of funny. I saw a funny tweet that it said leading into, the finals of the World Series, that I get that ESPN's angle is that Florida State softball fell off a truck last week and just found some luck, but they were 49-11. I think they definitely weren't favorites in the seeding process. I think we were a 10 seed. Mm-hmm. But coming in there, they had a ton of heart and grit. We had a great pitching staff and people to go to, and they really, their bats got hot when they needed to. So it was super exciting to watch. I was actually doing a lot of work travel in the time, and we were joking about it earlier. Even some Gators kind of would tack on, in the sports bar, and they were cheering on the Seminoles. So that was always nice to see too.
Well, at some point, just like in politics, you have to put your partisan affiliation aside.
That's right.
And root for the state. And this was one of those instances for me. I watched the first two games. I think the time slot for the third game, which wasn't the best one.
It was not prime time. Yeah.
It prohibited me. My career prohibited me from watching it. But I was telling you, I went to high school with Mike Martin Jr., and that's one of those times I can put that affiliation aside. But it's tougher for football. I've had season tickets for a long time, and there's a reason we're rivals. It's fun.
I get it. I see that you're asserting your rivalry by your shirt you have on today, but I'll forgive you for that one. So.
For anyone watching, yes, we're wearing some colors today. Good stuff. Well, speaking of capacity, what is the plan? Florida State, softball, baseball, football. Football's 100%, right?
I think a lot of what they do obviously is going to be governed by NCAA and ACC regulations. So this year that played a role, but I think everybody's moving full steam ahead. We'll have to wait for those announcements for the spring sports, but I think unless knock on wood, we go backwards, I think everybody will move forward. I know we're pumped about football season. Hopefully that'll get the momentum going into the spring sports.
It should. And last year, when the SEC and the ACC, were some of the only conferences said we're going to move ahead, there again, some unity where there normally isn't any. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
All right. So rolling out of the pandemic, looking back this time last year, I know the summer was a little odd in our industry. I don't know what was going on at you all's office, but we had a rare slow time. And just right around this time, it was crazy May and June, helping the entire community. It felt like work remote. And then there was just that brief calm before the storm, because then by the fall, people were gotta do more. Technology never sleeps, just like your industry. So, what did you do last summer on the home front? Any new COVID-19 hobbies? Did you? We painted everything. I talked about that a couple shows ago. Let's paint the carport. Let's paint the patio. Let's paint the interior. I mean, we literally painted just everything. All of it. Jeannie and I just decided we would do this. And now we're like, wow, we don't need to move now because we've redone our home. We got new carpet.
Did you add all those skills to your LinkedIn?
I wasn't allowed to paint near the trim. I was only allowed.
We all have our gifts.
Jeannie's the general contractor of the house. She said, no. I'll take care of that. You just paint in the middle with the big brush.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was speaking with our executive director about this a couple weeks ago because, everybody assumes that there were slow times, even when schools shut down, which it wasn't for very long. It was really the end of last school year in Florida. But our members, they needed a different different level of service and consultation. So we were busy around the clock. And then we had some great leadership within the association who asked us to, we did an ad hoc committee, and we spent a lot of time doing a pandemic response guide. So, helping these policymakers feel prepared, that they're thinking of all, not necessarily the answers, because there's different community standards across the state, but all the right questions to be asking, and making sure that they were kind of meeting those pieces. So we did a lot more Zooming. Work was a little bit stressful at times, but I think that our members needed that. And so we were happy to serve there. There was some time for some house projects. I think I watched all of Netflix. And all of the streaming. Yellowstone was a big favorite. I don't know if you watched that one with Kevin Costner. It's intense.
It's about 2 in line. It got bumped behind because of Loki.
Okay.
We started watching that last week.
Didn't watch that. Yeah.
It just came out. And Mandalorian 2, and we had to finish Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, finished Schitt's Creek.
TV
yeah, I don't even know if I can list them all. Finished Stranger Things, finished Handmaid's Tale, which is now things are starting to come back. Ozarks was another one.
That was
another dark one, but like a good one.
That was my number one favorite show, like maybe ever.
Yeah,
Michael Bateman, that's his name. Jason Bateman.
Yep.
So amazing, great actor.
So great.
And the Ruth character we liked so much, we named our cat Ruth.
Wow, that must be one little wild cat.
Feisty, yes.
Yeah, feisty cat. I was trying to think of a podcast appropriate adjective.
Feisty always works. Good stuff. All right. So, a lot of outsiders from the process might not, me included for that matter. I mean, I write for FloridaPolitics.com, and we work with a lot of associations, but I'm still not at the Capitol during session. For those listening that might not know what goes on during a legislative session, what's an average day like for someone like yourself during the process?
Outside of the pandemic, it's different than it was.
Yeah, let's say go back 19 and before.
Yeah, so it's a lot of interfacing with legislators, even when they're avoiding you. Trying to, so you're in the Capitol pretty much all day. It kind of feels like a casino. You're not seeing daylight a lot of times. A lot of walking around. Trying to get intel from other lobbyists, from legislators themselves, having those obviously pointed meetings with your members and working on issues. It could be really busy for some folks. Some folks only do a certain type of work, like appropriations work, and they get really busy towards the end. For us, it's pretty steady. For FSBA, I can speak for that. We'll have different school board members from across the state in on different weeks. So kind of a tour guide in some senses too, getting that feel. And then obviously, you'll have events after too. So a lot of long days, a lot of forgotten lunches, things like that. This year was a little bit different. You had to kind of find creative ways to have that interfacing and those meetings. I think that most of us who are in the profession really thrive off the energy of other humans. So I know we missed that, even just, chatting and kind of working out the nervous energy with each other through conversation. It was difficult to have that interaction this year. So I know we're all looking forward to the fourth floor moving forward.
Yeah, I had a face-to-face meeting this morning with a client who, for the past 18 months, we've been virtually meeting, and so much more productive just to sit in the room with someone.
Yeah.
And have a conversation. The screen just puts up a little bit of a divide, depending how intense the subject matter is. But it was great. I'm glad.
Well, we were laughing about session this year because the way that the Senate did it is they found a solution to have a satellite committee room. So it was not on campus. It was actually over in the Donald L. Tucker Center. And so members of the public would have to go over to that room it was like very meta. You're like watching a live stream of the Senate, and then when it came time for public testimony, the stream switched. So then you ended up, they were watching a live stream of you, but you couldn't see them. And so much of that, the interpersonal communication is like reading the cues in the room and doing all these things. And it was a very awkward feeling, but it's definitely a Saturday Night Live skit there somewhere. But yeah, so I know a lot of people missed that too. It'll be nice to get back to normal.
Yeah, outside of this one-on-one meetings, I did a lot of group meetings where, cybersecurity discussions, things like that. And like, imagine, 60 people on the camera and, talking straight for 10 minutes and be like, Bueller?
Yeah.
Is anyone listening? Because you can see people, they're all like looking at their computer, looking at their phone, like, hello. Oh, so okay, you said miss.
It is funny though to think about too, like how awkward and formal I think we all were at the beginning of this, like shall we call it the Zoom movement? I don't know, whatever we want to call it. And I think it's funny to see Alex and Chelsea Workman did that project called COVIDware.
Right.
And it was awesome because it was all portraits of people in the process and not in the business on the top and the work from home in the bottom. And it was just a way to bring levity to the situation.
Series, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a fun shoot, and they asked a bunch of us to do it. But you just think about these moments where we were all kind of like, we weren't sure how formal we should be. You know, it's like, why do I need to have a blazer on in my kitchen? Like, but it's just kind of where we were. And now you go back to it on the one-off that we're still having Zooms, and everybody's more comfortable. Everybody kind of knows the rules. Nobody's accidentally not on mute.
Right.
And,
I wore slacks today. That's a big deal because it's kind of the heat is getting to me because my COVID uniform was sport coat, nice shirt, jeans, and like Peter Millar tennis shoes that I discovered. I found that I like to online shop during COVID-19.
Oh, heck yeah.
I didn't sit around and buy shoes. Now I buy shoes online. That's me now.
Yeah, my best COVID online purchase was a sloth head cover for my driver.
Nice.
And it's become quite the conversation piece now. It's like, I ordered that during COVID, and sure enough, it came. And so hopefully I don't lose that. But
Jeannie said the highlight of the day, just as we see in our culture, what did Amazon bring us today?
Yeah,
so exciting.
Definitely.
So you mentioned lunch before we wrap today, a missed lunch. If you could have lunch with anyone in the world, alive or dead, and this is just a question off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're going to stump me on this one.
Who would that be?
Well, first of all, anyone listening who knows me, I say this all the time. People laugh. I hate lunch. So, like, if you ever need a meeting with me for business, suggest coffee or a happy hour. Like, lunch is my reset time. So I'm not a big lunch fan with other people, but I'll do it if I need to.
I like a fast lunch. I'll go to Taco Republic.
Yeah, quick.
Because you order standing up, and you sit down, and they bring food instantly. Like, if you take me to the Governor's Club, if I have to sit down for an hour and a half.
If I'm captive at lunch, I'm really going to have a high level of anxiety. It's like my time to become a human again, and like reset and go back. But that's easy I think I would have lunch with my dad. Like, I lost my dad 4.5 years ago. He's a buddy, and he's could be hard on me and fun, but I think I would definitely do that if I had the chance.
I think that's the greatest answer I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Well played. Last question. Concerts. I used to work in the music business. I'm working with Ken Block, the lead singer, Sister Hazel, on a little writing project right now. So music's top of mind. We just saw Edwin McCain play at the Moon. That was fun. Some old 90s adult contemporary rock. What was the last concert you saw, like pre-pandemic? And have you seen any live music since they've started having live music again?
Man.
Two-part question.
I used to go to a lot of concerts. I can't remember the last one that I went to. Pre-pandemic, it might have been the 30A Songwriters Festival. We're big fans of that.
That's so fun.
Yeah, so it probably was something around there, pre-pandemic. I did go to a concert recently, and I don't care. Everybody will make fun of me. I'm a huge Dina Carter fan. Strawberry Wine, Dina Carter.
Strawberry Wine, yeah, 17.
It's like that. It's a little more. I think you're just a little.
I can sing.
Off, yeah,
that was really good. Gabby,
wasn't
it? Producer Gabby in the house.
She came to the Moon, and so we went. It was like towards the end of session, and I proudly went and saw Dina Carter in Tallahassee as my pandemic breakout concert, and she was fantastic as ever and put on a great show. Her opener was great too. I can't remember her name, but the opener got so fired up before the show that she forgot some of the words to her songs. But she was very candid about that, and it kind of was just what's more pandemic than that? She's like, I was so excited I forgot the words of my songs, y'all.
That's awesome.
So that was a great one. It's good to be back.
Edwin said the night before he had his first show back, he played a private party at SeaWorld, and he said he walked out and was so excited, put his hands out, I was like, yeah. And he's like, my guitar wasn't plugged in.
Stop.
And he's like, that's me, the 40-something rock star.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Any closing thoughts? How can we support Florida State? You mentioned an organization.
Yeah, the coaches clubs. I think that I'm a member of the softball coaches clubs, but it's part of the booster program. But it's a way to individually support some of the teams. I think it's no offense to any of the men's sports, but some of the women's sports struggle a little bit more with funding. I think it's a great way to directly support those coaches and some of the initiatives that those athletes are doing. So it doesn't have to be softball, but you can check that out through the Seminoles athletic page.
Awesome. Well, thank you, BillieAnne Gay, for being our guest today. Coming up next on the Biz and Tech podcast, we will have Jay Revel with Revel Media. We will have Mayor John Daly. And who knows? It's going to be a long fall. We're excited about the second half of the year. But for today, we are signing off. That's the Biz and Tech Podcast. I'm Blake Dowling. Have a great day. And look at that awesome hat over here.
Adding one to the rack.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you next time.